The signs were all out there that the Father's Day movie-going audience was in for a big surprise. We had two big movies coming out. We had The Flash from Warner Brothers and their final remnants of the DCEU. And then we had Elemental, the latest Pixar Disney offering for families. Everything was trending bad going into this weekend for both films. It did not look like either one of them was going to do well, despite a really good trailer from The Flash and Elemental, I don't know, looking like a knockoff of Inside Out, which was obviously a really big hit. And somehow, despite exceptionally low expectations, Elementals being that it was going to be the worst performing Pixar opening ever, they actually underperformed, both of them. Like, how do you do this? I do not know. And I want to say this up front. I assume that the Flash movie, after seeing the trailer on the Super Bowl, despite having Ezra Miller in it and despite being part of the DCEU, which is dead now, would actually do well because the trailer looked so damn good. But actually, after seeing people's screenshots and a few recordings that were put on social media from the actual experience in the theater, I don't believe Warner Brothers were actually giving the audience a real look at what they were producing, because it absolutely looked laughable. Especially the CGI almost across the board looked like crap, and it didn't look like that in the trailer. So I think there was a little bit of false advertising that certainly probably helped in the demise of The Flash, as it looked like the momentum for the movie just dwindled as the weekend went out. Starring Ezra Miller in the titular role, Warner Brothers and DC's The Flash is anything but flashy in the opinion of moviegoers. The film earned an estimated $55.1 million for the 3 days and projected $64 million for the 4 days, notably behind expectations. The Flash had hoped for a 3-day start of at least $70 million, so as to come in ahead of such disappointing DC titles as Black Adam, which collected $67 million in its first 3 days. And if you remember correctly, Black Adam was considered a monumental failure, like on biblical levels, when The Rock's DC Comics movie did not perform well and only brought in $67 million over 3 days. Somehow, The Flash has brought in $55 million over 3 days and actually $64 million over 4. So it actually underperformed it, even though it actually had another day and it was a holiday weekend. And I guarantee The Flash cost at least $100 million more to make and was certainly promoted far heavier than Black Adam was. This is going to be one of the biggest flops in movie history. My goodness, what an enormous amount of money lost on making this movie. Who would have thought that a Flash movie starring Ezra Miller, not really as Barry Allen or Wally West, just some other weird version of the Flash that no one actually likes, being like the catalyst of everything for the DCEU in like a Flashpoint event that was leading nowhere, but only had a bunch of cameos. And there are a bunch of cameos, apparently. You know, we knew that we were getting Keaton. We knew that we were getting Ben Affleck. We knew that we were getting Momoa. But we're getting like anyone that's ever played Batman, even if they're dead in this thing. And they absolutely all look laughable when you look at the CGI. It's just so embarrassing. And it bombed harder than anyone possibly could have imagined. I knew Ezra Miller was going to be a difficult pill to swallow for a lot of people, but that trailer did look good. But there is no future for the DCEU, and I guess everyone is just jaded at this point. There were a group of people that did like the Zack Snyder universe, but it certainly wasn't a big enough group of people to support that universe and make it profitable at the amount of money that they want to spend on these movies. And I've read some news that going forward, any DCU related project as a cap on it as far as budget. You can't go over $150 million until the DCU itself has proven solvent to where it can actually make money. And after this, Bob, it's going to take a long time. They better hope that Superman Legacy is everything that they're promising it will be, under the watchful eye of James Gunn writing, directing, and producing the damn thing. My goodness, does he have a lot of work to do in lifting up the DCU out of the shadows of the DCEU, and somehow this is a bigger flop than Justice League and Batman versus Superman. That's how bad this is. This is the biggest black eye in the history of Warner Brothers when it comes to adapting DC Comics characters to the big screen. And they've certainly had a lot of black eyes. This is worse than Batman and Robin. This is worse than Bat Nipples. This is worse than all of that. And you can certainly blame a lot of that on Walter Hamada moving forward to this, because they kept Ezra Miller around despite all the legal troubles and despite the fact that everyone hated Ezra Miller as the Flash. They decided to move forward because he's going to be a big box office star, right? He's even in the Harry Potter universe, destroying that as well. The Flash currently has a 67% score on Rotten Tomatoes. A bigger problem, audiences gave the movie a mediocre B cinema score. Box office pundits are divided as to whether Ezra Miller's off-screen woes are impacting the film's performance. Miller was arrested multiple times in 2022 and was the subject of several controversies, culminating in the actor issuing a statement in August of last year apologizing for their behavior and saying they would receive help for complex mental health issues. Miller walked the red carpet at the movie's premiere, but has otherwise been absent from doing publicity for The Flash. How pundits are divided on this is beyond me. Anybody with two functioning brain cells knows that when the star of the movie, who you're supporting by supporting the movie, is a no-good criminal that hides behind their newfangled, in vogue gender identity to provide shielding from any type of criticism. No one likes that stuff. No one likes Ezra Miller. And here's the other problem. Even if he wasn't a criminal, even if Ezra Miller wasn't doing all this stupid shit and walking the red carpet and being an idiot, no one likes him anyway because he's a terrible actor. He was an awful choice for Barry Allen. That one's on you, Zack Snyder. Yes, you did get Henry Cavill as Superman. You got Ben Affleck as Batman, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, Jason Momoa as Aquaman, and all those were very good choices. Ezra Miller as Flash was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. No charisma, no on-screen presence. Just comes off as creepy in basically everything he does in movies, and certainly comes off as creepy in his own life. And that was certainly an enormous black eye on the movie before it ever debuted. Everyone knew going into this, if Flash was going to be successful, it was going to be in spite of Ezra Miller being the star of the film. And obviously, that was a mountain too high to scale for Warner Brothers and Andy Muschietti. And let's get some things serious, too. James Gunn, Peter Safran, and David Zaslav have hurt their reputations by going out ahead of this and saying that this was the best superhero movie that had ever been made, period. When if you just see some of the screen caps and you see some of the video that's been taken, it's laughable and not in a good way. The CGI is so bad. I've heard it compared to The Rock's performance in The Mummy 2 when he was the Scorpion King at the end, where you had Rock's head on a scorpion body and it looked like it was out of a really bad video game. That's what a lot of people I trust are comparing the CGI in this Flash movie to. That's embarrassing. And they put their reputations out there, I guess, in the hopes that they could make some money and salvage what was obviously a sinking ship at this point. But it probably wasn't very smart in the long run because they had to have known you can only garner so much goodwill with member berries and cameos in the movie. Easter eggs only go so far as keeping people engaged in the story. You actually have to have a good movie with good performances that actually looks really good and culminates in something amazing to say it's the best superhero movie of all times. This didn't even come close. Nobody is saying that other than those people, and that was an enormous mistake. And like I said, the word of mouth has only gotten worse and worse and worse as the weekend went along and the projections went down and down and down. Obviously, I did talk about Disney and Pixar's Elemental at the beginning. Not much better for them, although they did have a little bit better staying power over the weekend. But in the end, Elemental's hopes were dashed as the family film quickly fell flat at the box office at a new low for the storied Pixar animation studio, which has already been suffering. Many pundits worry that original animated IP is no longer a theatrical proposition, fueled by the former regime at Disney sending several Pixar movies straight to streaming during the pandemic. Elemental earned an estimated $29.5 million for the 3-day weekend, the lowest wide weekend debut ever for a Pixar title outside of Toy Story, which started off with $29.1 million nearly 3 decades ago, not adjusted for inflation. That is absolutely embarrassing, and I'm not surprised this happened. Nobody trusts Pixar, nobody trusts Disney to actually entertain their kids anymore. Even if they put something out that isn't offensive or is actually pretty well aimed and executed at children these days, most parents are actually going to have to go see it before they'll actually let their kids watch it. They don't have that family box office anymore. And, original IP just isn't viable, at the box office anymore because Pixar sent 3 movies straight to streaming. Like I said, stop with the pandemic bullshit. They aren't making good movies anymore. They fired John Lasseter, and they have no creativity, and they have nobody in charge that understands who their audience is to actually direct their fire and execute movies at a level that was previously associated with Pixar. And let's be honest, the animation style at this point is pretty blasé. Go watch Elemental, and if you've seen the Spider-Verse movie, compare the two. Which one's exciting? Which one's vibrant? Which one really pops when you see it? Which one feels refreshing? Which one feels awesome when you see it in the theater? It's the Spider-Verse movie, which also uses 3D animation, but has put a little bit more of a cutting edge on it to make it a better viewing experiences for the audiences, obviously those being children, because that's a kid's movie as well. The biggest obstacle facing Disney and Pixar in the years to come are Disney and Pixar. Once they fix their reputation, once they actually make movies that line up to the standard of, I don't know, a Toy Story, an Up, and Inside Out, and all the other amazing Pixar movies that were made back in the day, people will start showing up again. When Disney and Pixar stop using their movies as a platform to try and groom children and do other types of weird stuff and, I don't know, teach them about stuff that parents just aren't really comfortable with, once they stop doing that and they get back to entertaining children, people will start supporting the company once again. But that ain't happening anytime soon, because at this point, it's going to take years for them to actually fix their reputation, which they sullied in about 2 or 3 years. It is not looking good. We saw all this happening, and this isn't anything new for Disney. In fact, in 2022, they had the 3 biggest bombs for the entire year, spanning kids' movies, MCU, all that kind of stuff. The 3 biggest money losers all year were from Disney. Can you guess them? I talk about it all right here and how Disney has poisoned their own well and driven their fans away. If you haven't seen this video, you need to check it out right now. There's also a link in the video description.